I had a hard time appreciating what I had in life or what I was doing because I always needed more. I was always too focused on what's next, and what's the bigger mountain I can climb. And being obsessive about climbing mountains and bigger and better mountains was the key to pass these people. And that's where the hustle culture syndrome, really got to me. And the Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, my guests and I provide the skills for thinking bigger, overcoming adversity, and making an impact with your work. What's going on? You're listening to episode 136 of the Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Scotty.D.Russell, the Perspective Collective. I'm here to help you build a killer side hustle and elevate your brand outside your day job. So today we're going to start off with a two-part series that's all about, one, climbing mountains, and part two is all about popping bottles. Since this show is all about fueling you along your creative grind, my goal is to have this series break down the importance of, one, smart hustle, and two, celebrating wins, the importance of doing it. It's super important. Take my word for it. So part one, today's mission is climbing mountains, and I want to talk about the blessing and the curse of the what's next mentality. And I want to talk about how you can be cooler than Chuck Norris. So stick around, let's dive into it, and let's lead off just talking about the blessing and the curse of mountain climbing with this what's next mentality. So back in episode 56, I had my brother Tony Diaz of Industry Print Shop on, and he told his inspiring backstory of how he got his start by selling merch for punk rock bands, and then his goal was to join a punk rock band, which he did, and then his goal was to be on the Warped Tour, which he ended up doing, and it kept going from mountain after mountain to where he ended up going to starting one of the most successful print shops in America, an Industry Print Shop in Austin, Texas. But at the same time, his goal was constantly stuck on what was next, what's the biggest, best mountain he could climb next, and he lost sight of a lot of things in between. And to me, climbing mountains and relentlessly pursuing the next biggest accomplishment is no doubt a blessing. At the same time, it's a curse when you lack self-awareness. So from the blessing side of thing, it is a blessing as it enables you to do two things. One, tap into your potential, and two, cultivate a killer work ethic. So for me, from my experience, I'm one who gravitates towards, these mountain climbers. These are people I like to observe in the world of entrepreneurship and creatives, whatever. Those are the people I'm attracted to. And I've learned that these mountain climbers, they never settle. They're hungry, they're focused, they're inspired, and savagely pursue the next peak to attain, that next mountain. And these mountain climbers, they tend to see the world through a different lens. Their pupils are glued straight ahead, forward, and upward. There's no time to break their gaze by looking down or worrying about what's behind them. And nothing's going to distract them from getting that prize, like a 4-year-old driven to dig to the bottom of that cereal box back in the 1990s. So if you're too young to know what prizes are in the bottom of a cereal box, then I'm sorry, this one's going to not resonate with you as much. But for me, I used to always dig for that prize at the bottom of the cereal. But this mountain climbing mentality, does this sound like you or anyone else you should know? If not, I have a how to know if you're a mountain climber checklist. So one, you're a mountain climber if you realize that life is short and you have to take matters into your own hand. Number two, you're a mountain climber if you have accepted that no one is going to deliver your dream to your front door like a hot and fresh pizza from your local favorite pizza joint. All right, that's number two. Number three, that you're a mountain climber if you welcome adversity and you use failure as your fuel. And the fourth way I feel that you're going to know you're a mountain climber if you're not afraid to kick your own ass and show up when it's not convenient. And that's the most important part, is showing up when it's not convenient, doing things when they're not easy. And doesn't this sound like a glorious modern day creative Chuck Norris lifestyle? Kicking ass, taking names, climbing mountains. How could this mindset be anything other than a blessing, you may ask? And if you haven't guessed by now, I'm a mountain climber, all right? This is the kind of characteristics I feel like I have and I've cultivated over the last couple of years. But trust me when I say this Chuck Norris roundhouse approach to your creative grind, it comes with a cost. And that's where we get into the curse side of the things and being seduced by success and blinded by the comparison trap. And my transformation into a mountain climber came when I got a little taste of what I thought was success back in 2013, 2014. So I became tunnel vision and borderline obsessed with my side hustle at Perspective Collective back when my artwork started gaining traction on Instagram. Back when internet people started following my art and sending me praise through DMs or comments. I wasn't used to that at all in my entire life. Success to me was when people started to pay me for my work, whether it was in my own style or not, just being hired to do something. And then I thought I was successful when I was getting asked to speak or teach at massive creative conferences like Creative South. You hear me talk about that all the time. And so while all this cool shit was happening in my life, the comparison trap made it impossible to appreciate the progress I was making during this climb early in the days of Perspective Collective. I was so convinced that I got such a late start to the game compared to my creative peers or the idols, the people that I looked up to, people that were killing it right off the jump, in their early 20s. And because of this, it eliminated the need for me to live in the moment and soak up the wins, whether they were big or small. And to me, what was the point when someone else had more followers, they had bigger clients, or maybe they did a bigger keynote on a bigger stage somewhere across the United States or just global in general? I had a hard time appreciating what I had in life or what I was doing because I always needed more. I was always too focused on what's next and what's the bigger mountain I can climb. And being obsessive about climbing mountains and bigger and better mountains was the key to pass these people. And that's where the hustle culture syndrome, really got to me. And another downside to this what's next mentality is becoming jaded by this hustle culture. And you begin to believe that you have to burn the candle at both ends in order to advance, in order to, truly succeed at your craft with your whatever side hustle that you're doing at that time. And to ascend and dominate the next mountain, you sign your own permission slip to lose sleep by working earlier and grinding harder late into the night. All right, hustle culture, no sleep, they go hand in hand. And you begin to tell yourself that it's okay to eat shitty for your convenience, that you can skip the gym, and it's okay to blow off people, even your loved ones, because somehow these all take on the form of a distraction. Next thing you know, you're burnout, you're feeling and looking like shit, you have zero energy, and there's no one in your corner you can turn to for support. And that's where I want to talk about smart hustle, which is working smarter plus self-awareness. So by all means, work your ass off. I'm not here to tell you not to work your ass off. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't climb a mountain, as I'm all for going against the grain and making shit happen for yourself. Again, that's part of that checklist. However, I've learned the hard way that I've gone through burnout. I've ruined relationships, and I couldn't stand the way I looked or felt when I was looking into a mirror because of this hustle culture mentality. And 5 years later into my side hustle, I started this in 2014, 2019 now. I'm still a constant work in progress of self-improvement. I'm a work in progress every day, trying to get better, to be the best version of myself. And I've failed a lot. And these failures have taught me that there can be a beautiful balance of working hard and not working at all. And that's all developing the filter of knowing what's cool versus what's not cool. And to find this beautiful balance, I think it's important to establish these cool versus not cool scenarios. So for me, I feel hitting a big milestone in your life or side hustle creative grind is cool, but it's more cool to have people in your corner that you can celebrate with, which we're going to talk more about in the Pop and Bottle series part 2 next week. I also understand that once in a while you may have to do an all-nighter to hit that deadline, to get shit done, to hit that promise of when you said you'd get something to someone, but accepting this as the norm is not cool. What is cool is getting sleep, taking care of your mental, your physical, or even spiritual health to have the energy to work smarter, not harder. What's not cool is digging yourself an early grave because you work nonstop with no light at the end of the tunnel. I've experienced that was probably me for like the first 3.5 years of doing this. But what is cool is learning how to take breaks, delegate the non-essential, disconnecting from social media, and having hobbies that let you recharge and refuel your inspiration tank. So if you're a mountain climber like me, these cool areas tend to be our biggest struggle, especially me of taking breaks and unplugging. Like that's really hard for me. And that's exactly why I've been doing, implementing every 7th week off from doing the podcast for my sanity. That way I can inject these reoccurring lights at the end of the tunnel so I'm not digging myself an early grave and causing myself to go to burnout. I need those breaks. I'm still early into this, but it's already helped immensely with not feeling overwhelmed and giving myself a well-deserved break or a day off here and there. And this is where I want to talk about how you can be cooler than Chuck Norris. Because yes, Chuck Norris is cool. He has his own genre of jokes, and the dude is almost 80 years old and he can kick practically anyone's ass. All right, I'm trying to be like him when I'm that old. However, it's way cooler than being a modern day creative Chuck Norris when you're kicking ass on your creative grind, yet still being able to see the bigger picture of your importance of health and relationships. So what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to summarize and recap here is that when you're climbing mountains, don't forget to look down and live in the in-between moments of life. Don't let life pass you by because you're too focused on what's next. You can have your cake and eat it too with a little bit of smart hustle. So that's it. Short, punchy, all about smart hustle, mountain climbing, everything to do to get you focusing on the bigger picture. That's what this episode's about. So be ready for part 2. We're celebrating those W's next week, what I call popping bottles like the homie Champagne Poppy over there with Drake. As I wrap things off, I want to give a huge thank you to my executive assistant, Paige Garland, my video specialist, Colton Bacher, the homie, as well as Bluka, Nick Jenkins, for all the dope music you hear on this show. And as you finish off this week strong, I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and keep creating. You got this. Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.